Let's begin. Everyone ready? Yeah, go. So we are going to be learning at the first declension nouns. Last time we learned second declension nouns. But at the same time, we are going to be doing a review because if you looked at the chapter and read it, it's really only, how many pages? 3 or 4 pages long? Pretty short. I generally have 20 plus slides, and I'm only having like something around 10 today, so it's going to be pretty fast. But since there are some new folks here, we're going to maybe semi-slow. Just to get us started, we normally go over our vocabulary. I just like to say it and you guys repeat it. So the first one at the very top is agape. Let's try that again. Agape. There you go. Aletheia. Aletheia. Hamartia. Basileia. Glossa. Graphe. Didax. Oh, hold on. Didache. Doxa. Irene. Ecclesia. Intale. Exousia. Or excusia, whatever, however you want to Hemera. Mathetes. Messias. Neanias. Parabole. Prophetes. Satanas. And telones. And those are our vocabulary for this chapter. It's pretty similar, or pretty easy, hopefully. So we're going to begin with our review. So we have learned the verb system, specifically the present, active, indicative verbs. That's all we've known. Present is the tense, so it talks about time. But at the same time, Greek is more than just time-based. It is action-based. So there's 3 types of action. There's progressive, there's a summary, and then there's a perfective aspect. So it's based off aspect. So progressive can be something that is continuous or habitual in nature. So if I walk, if I say I walk, I could also mean I'm walking. So I'm something I'm just doing in the present continuously. A summary would just be stating what it is. It's just like a dot in time. You don't know anything other than this happened. And then perfective aspect is something that has a beginning, but it's continuing on to the results of it is continuing on to the present. So I could say I walked. Well, I could say I have walked, and but look at me, my legs are strong. It's something like that in there. So that is the main things to understand the background of the Greek verb. And we learned the present, active, indicative paradigm, which present, again, is tense. Active is voice. The Greek has 3 types of voice. There's active, there's passive, and there's middle. And so active is the subject acting upon something. Passive is the subject being acted upon. And middle, which is not what English has, but we haven't learned it yet, but it's something that happens both ways. Now, subject's doing something and also being acted upon themselves. And then indicative is the mood. There's 5, even though the book says 4, there's 5 types of moods. There's indicative, subjunctive, imperative, infinitive, and optative, if I remember right. I'm doing this all by head. But right now we're only learning the indicative, and indicative is the most common one. It's just basically stating, it's asserting that something has happened. It doesn't mean that's factual. It just means that whoever is saying this is saying it. That's the main thing you need to know about the indicative, and we'll learn all the other ones later. And then we learn what's called person and number. So person is first person, second person, third person. First person is I, me, or not I, yeah, but I basically, or it's first person I. And second person is you, and third person is he or she or it. The best way to understand person. So that's first, second, and third for person. Number is singular or plural. I always say, when you see number, don't think 1, 2, 3, think singular or plural, because person is 1, 2, 3. So plural would just mean instead of I, it's we. Instead of you, it's you all, or you, because English you can be either or. And instead of he, she, or it, it's they. Got it so far? And so we learned the present active indicative paradigm, which is this. And the main things you need to know is the endings, but the case word that we're looking at is lu, or the root word is lu, which means to loose or to destroy or to free someone. So it's first person singular would be luo, second person singular would be luace, third person singular would be lue. So that would be I loosed, you loosed, he or she or it loosed, depending on the context. And a plural, first person plural would be luamin. And if you notice right here, this omicron, the O looking like thing, that is a neutral morpheme. It's just there for phonological reasons. I think when I originally went over it, I thought I might have said that it could be for another purpose, or not always there, but I was actually wrong. It's just there for phonological reasons. It's always there. Not just, and same way with epsilon here, the backwards 3 looking like character, and that is another, just a neutral morpheme. So you have what is called the lexical morpheme. I'm bad at writing. Neutral morpheme, and then you have the person, number, suffix. That's how the Greek verb is broken apart. We'll learn more later on other things as we learn more about verbs like future, perfect, and so on and so forth. There's different things that happen to these verbs, but what gives its meaning is the root word right here, which is lu. So we have, for plural, we have luamin, luete, and luusi, or usin. And the noon, which looks like a V at the end, is movable. It's basically there. It's there more often than not, but the main rule is if it's a vowel at the beginning of the next word, it'll be there, or it's at the end of the sentence, it'll be there. But those are not hard, fast rules. It could be there no matter what, depending on the writer. And so if you were to translate luamen, it'd be we loose, luete is you loose, and luusi, that is they loose. Cool. Any questions on that? It's just a quick overview. I do recommend just going through those videos. It should be pretty simple. The second thing we learn is the Greek nouns. This is what Eli missed. But specifically, we have learned the second declension nouns. And with that, I think I told everyone to memorize the masculine, feminine, and the reason why is because it'll help you memorize the other parts, including the masculine article and the neuter article. But a noun is built in cases. It works kind of like a verb in that there's things added onto it, but the difference is its functionality. So for nouns, it's broken up into cases, and that's the first one on top with the N is called a nominative case, and that is basically the subject. Like I said in English, it's a subject, verb, object. I kicked the ball. I would be the subject. And well, Greek, the nominative case. So if you see an os, on, oi, a, that means they're most likely the subject. However, if you see two nominatives together, the one with article is normally the subject. If they both don't have an article, then usually the first one is the subject, and the second one is called a predicate nominative. And all that means is that it describes the subject. Next is the genitive. Genitive case, which is the G right there. It's very flexible, but it has two primary points or functions. It shows possession, and in English you usually do apostrophe S, Tim's ball. But it can also show ablative, which means you're moving away from something, and so that key words for a genitive is of or from. So if you could just remember of or from, you will get the genitive 9 out of 10 times. And then generally the function of it will show through after that. And the genitive ending is u and on for the masculine, feminine for the second declension. And it's also for the neuter. So the star here just means it's the same as the masculine, feminine form. The next case is the dative case, and this generally takes the direct object for most cases, but the best way to understand it is just the words with, in, to, by. Those 4 words. If you can get those 4 words, the functionality of the dative case is pretty self-explanatory. You could say context will make it clear if it's going to be in something or to something, and usually the verb attached to it will really make it clear.
Can you repeat the 4 words?
Yeah. In, with, to, by. And even on, if you wanted to add on. Like on the 3rd day. Jesus rose on the 3rd day. That's in the dative case in 1 Corinthians 15. And the last case is the accusative case, and this is generally the direct object. So like Tim kicked the ball. Well, the ball would be the direct object, and that would be what would be the accusative case in Greek. And its ending is on and us, and for the neuter it would be ah. Any questions on that? One thing I think I did forget to do is put the
One at the bottom row, the V.
Oh, V, that's a vocative. And that's rarely used, but it is direct address. So that would be, generally you see it in prayers. You know, Father, I think the Lord's Prayer, for example, has that. John 17 has that when he said when Jesus says, "My God."
So the book has 8. Do you think a lot of those just go together?
So look, if you look at this chart here, you'll see 5 different endings, and I am against saying something's there that's not there. So if Greek has 5 endings, that means it probably has 5 cases. And I would say that the genitive, for example, if you look at, I forgot what number it is in the book, but genitive and right underneath it is ablative. So I would say that those 2 would fall under the genitive case. So genitive has an ablative function, if that makes sense. Then underneath that, you'll see dative, and then you'll have 2 after that, instrumental and locative. And instrumental, locative, and dative would fall underneath the dative case. So just see those within the book as functions of that case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see.
I don't really know why he did that. That's my one critique on this whole entire book. I just don't understand. Maybe he just did it because there's a functionality of it, but no one that I know of agrees with that. They may say that there's a functionality of it, but they don't say that there's 8 cases. Unless it's a new thing and I just don't understand it. So, any questions on that before I do the article real fast? So, if you look at this sheet, I forgot to put it on my slide, but since we're doing it at the very bottom, you'll see masculine, neuter, with a whole bunch of things that start with a T looking like thing, a tau. That is the articles. We only looked at the masculine neuter last time. Today we're going to be looking at the feminine. But the easiest way to understand the article is that one you would translate as the. However, Greek and English are not the same language, so when you do translate a sentence, like in one of our examples that we had earlier, you don't always have to translate the article. Greek does not have an indefinite article. You know what an indefinite article is? You can say no if you don't. A or an. So like a apple versus the apple. A apple makes it seem like there's more than one. I would like an apple, actually, not an. There's an in. The same thing with that movable noun right here in the verb. Kind of works the same way. So a or an would be the indefinite article, and the would be the definite article. Indefinite, definite, yeah. The Greek does not have the indefinite article. So when you're translating in English, you may need to supply it because it's not there in Greek. The definite article may be translated, may not be translated, depending on how it makes the sentence sound. For example, Greek usually has a definite article on proper names. So you'll, like Jesus, for example. You'll be reading the Gospels and it'll be like, the Jesus did this, or I said this to the Jesus. And you're like, okay. But the reason why is because the Greek works a little differently, and you just need to know that in English, that would not be how it would be translated. So it's an English issue, not a Greek issue. Like I said, most translation problems are English issues, not Greek issues. Greek functions the way it is, but since we're translating it, there's issues. So the article. So the primarily thing that you need to know about article is that it adds a tau looking thing at the end of the ones I just wrote on right there. However, in the nominative case, it's a little different. It's not the as, but it's a ha, or instead of actually oi would be the same, but it'd be hoi. It would add a breathing mark, rough breathing mark. That's another thing with Greek. They have breathing marks, and they don't have a H sounding consonant like English does, but they have a breathing mark that makes it so it looks like a backwards apostrophe. You'll see stuff that has a apostrophe there. That's just there. But the backwards one means that there is a sound in the word. So that would be the masculine, feminine articles. Ha, tu, to, ton, hoi, ton, tois, tus. And the neuter one is basically follows the masculine except for the plural. And the plural just adds a tau on the plural, but on the not singular, it's just a ta. Any questions on that? So the reason why I had you memorize this is because it helps you memorize the neuter, and it also helps you memorize the articles, and it just simplifies how much you have to memorize into basically 2 lines. So any questions on that? No? Cool. Okay. Yep. So today we're going to be learning about the first declension nouns. So basically this is going to be pretty simple, straightforward. And this is the main slide right here. It's knowing this. Let's see if I can make that bigger. There we go. Only thing is I can't see it on mine. There we go. Can everyone see that? It's on your paper too, at the top. So this looks pretty massive, doesn't it? You think you have to memorize 6 different things, right? But you really don't. So it has basically the same thing as the second declension. It has the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. Those are the primary things that tell you the subject, the object, whether it's genitive or dative, and so on and so forth. But the main thing I want you to memorize, and if you got your pencil out, I would like you to circle number 3 right here. And that's the main one I want you to memorize. 3 and also 6. Okay? So the main things that we are trying to do is, one, simplify it, but to recognize the endings of nouns. And there's one thing I wanted to do for you. There's a whole bunch of websites right there. These will help you out. Yeah, especially the first one. But the main thing I want you to do is be able to recognize these endings, and the easiest way to do it is memorize the 3-column and 6-column. And then you'll notice that the primary thing you see in this one is the eta, which is the in-looking like thing, and then just understanding some rules. So the first rule is if it ends with a epsilon, an iota, or a rho, it's not going to have the eta, but it's going to have an alpha. Okay? So if it has an epsilon, iota, or rho, it's going to have a eta or alpha instead of an eta. So if you just memorize 3 and just memorize the rule, if it ends with a epsilon, iota, or alpha, it's going to have or rho is going to have an alpha. But generally, when you're reading Greek, it's just going to be there. So you just need to understand when you see an alpha next to one of these words, letters here, not words, letters, and it's going to help you to say, oh, this is a first declension noun. That's feminine singular. And then when you look at the masculine, number 5, you'll notice that you have the A's there, but the only major difference is that the genitive has the oo. And where did you see that before? Second declension. So really all masculine and along with the plural genitive is going to be the same as the second declension. The primary difference is the nominative. And so the confusing thing here is not mixing up the os and ace with the genitive feminine singular os and ace, depending on the endings. So the best way there's only 2 ways to really know this. The first way is to know your vocabulary words and understanding that they're feminine or masculine. So that's so know vocab gender. And you can know the vocab gender by looking at the article in front of the vocabulary, which I'll show you that later. And the second one is if it has an article, because article does not have declensions. So what you see on articles is going to be there. So if the word has an article attached to it, that will help you identify if this is going to be feminine, masculine. Yeah. Okay. So 1 and 3 is going to have the same rules. For 1 and 4 is going to have the same rules for feminine and masculine. But 2 is the odd one. 2 is what I call the mixed category. So you'll see the alpha is in the nominative and the accusative, but the eta is in the genitive and dative. Can you see that? The best way to understand this is if it ends with a sibilant, which is anything that has a s sound to it. So you have a sigma that has a s sound. You have a zeta. Well, zeta also has a z sound to it. And then you have a z and a psi. Now, I did not write the psi on yours, so you might want to write that in. I forgot to put that in there when I was making it. But it's a psi, which is the little fork looking like thing. So you have a z and a psi. Well, those two consonants right there are actually called double consonants. And if I remember everything, so key, a kappa, or a gamma plus a sigma equals a z. Okay? A p beta, there's one more. I don't remember off the top of my head anymore. Plus a sigma equals a psi. So that's just a side rule, but just so you know that these are actually called double consonants, and they're called sibilant. They have the s sound to them. And so if you see a s sound, it's the nominative and the accusative is going to be the same thing as if it had a epsilon, iota, or rho, and if it's a genitive or dative, it's going to have the same ending as the main one that you're memorizing. So I'm just trying to kind of help you out. So if you just mainly memorize number 3 here and number 6, and just understand these two rules, it'll help you follow, and also understand that the genitive of masculine and plural is the same thing as the second declension. That's
when it says ends with other, that just means anything other than the
Yep.
things that it's just mentioned.
correct. So I'm basically just saying
Anything else.
this is the main thing, and everything's built off of that. Okay? Any questions on that?
Is there any purpose to the masculine, feminine?
So the main thing you need to know about the masculine and feminine stuff is when we start learning about adjectives, start learning about articles, or no, applying when you're reading it and seeing an article, because sometimes the article, I'm trying to think of a thing, the position of the article could have something, and the noun that the article is tied to could have something in between it. So you need to understand that that article is actually tied to that word. So that's one thing. The second one will be adjectives, which we'll learn adjectives modify the noun. So like a big kite, big is the adjective. Well, that would need to agree with the article, I believe.
In
Gender. Yes. So that's the key to that, because that's how you're going to recognize how they're linked. Does that make sense? But mainly, if you memorize number 3 and number 6, you'll basically recognize it, because the alpha will kind of like, oh, this must mean this. Granted, the alpha is also in the going blank here. Where did I put it? Neuter, second declension nouns on the plural. So you would have to kind of, so the nominative singular feminine is the same ending as the nominative plural second declension. So you kind of, that's where you just need to be able to recognize the word at that point. And generally the article is going to most likely be there. So if you know the article, you're good to go. Cool? So article is really key to everything. And speaking of article, looking at number 3 again, it helps us out here because all you need to do is add a, you know what it is? What do you need to add generally? Tau, yeah. So you have taste, te, and tain. And the difference with the ending is you're going to have a breathing mark here. So it's a hey for the nominative. And for the plural, it's not a I, but it's a hi, right? Yep, hi. And then you have tone, tais, and it's not, and yeah, tas. So it's just the tau. It's kind of like this easy way to think about it. English has a T at the beginning of the article, and this is going to have the tau at the beginning, besides in the nominative case. Any questions on that? So see why it's so important to memorize number 3 and number 6? And just memorize the rules, and at least be familiar with the other, 4 categories? And it's pretty simple. Because the main thing is when you're translating, I'm not as worried about knowing, I guess, what declension it's in. I'm just worried if I can recognize it's a nominative, genitive, because that's how you're going to get the syntax, how you're going to be able to translate it and see the connection of all the words.
Why are they split into 2 declensions?
There's 3 declensions.
Okay, why are they split?
Just how it worked for fun.
But it literally doesn't matter when you're translating.
As long as you're able to recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The purpose of it in the sentence, that's all it is.
Yeah, the purpose of it in a sentence, that's the main thing. Yeah, so if you look at the websites, gntreader.com, or if you have an app, they generally give you that information. But I think the thing that is helpful in knowing Greek is understanding the functionality of it, and how, sure, we can look at translations to help us, but are these translations, because translations are just interpretations, so are these translations correct, for one? Because in some areas, I would argue that, not every translation is perfect, so they're not going to be correct depending on how you want to interpret a certain passage. And when we get to passages, I'll show you an example of that. Where was I going with that? But mainly just understanding the function will help you understand, I guess, when you start thinking like Greek, you can think when you're reading it, and it just helps. It's helpful in my opinion. It's a slow process. Oh look, I did add a article page. So yeah, so the feminine article. So again, there's no declensions in articles. You just need to know the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and gender of the article, and you're set on that. And if we could just say it all together, we have hey, taste, te, tain, hi, tone, tais, tas. Yeah. And this for you to know that when you see the dative case, it's going to have this iota subscript right there for both of you two. Cool? That's an easy way to know that it's a dative case. Dative case is that iota subscript. Okay. Any questions before we move on? I don't even know what time it is. But so we'll just do our vocabulary again. And the ones I have a red dot next to them are the ones I just want to be familiar with for the quiz. By the way, these are on page page are they on? 29 in the book. But the first one is agape. Aletheia. Hamartia. Basileia. Glossa. Graphe. Didache. Doxa. Eirene. Ecclesia. Entale. Excusia. Hemera. Mathetes. Messias. Neonias. Parabole. Prophetes. Satanas. Telones. So yeah, I was trying to. So parabole is similar to its the English word is parable. Prophetes is similar to prophets. Satanas, similar to Satan, which in Hebrew it's called Satan. So it's similar to the Greek in one sense. And I'm sure everyone's heard of agape love, right? Yeah, so that's pretty easy. Ecclesia, I'm sure everyone's heard, meaning church. And that's probably the main ones that everyone, or didache, you probably heard of that word before, but it means teaching.
Like didactic.
Yeah. Yep. So when you're memorizing, use things that you know to help you know it. There are some similarities and there are some dissimilarities. I like excusia. The way you're memorizing that was excuse me, I have the authority here. Something like that, whatever can help you memorize it. Doxology. Anyway, those type of things. Whatever can help you. Any questions on that? So for homework, be 3, 5, and 8 are the primary ones. If you could do more, that'd be great. And don't worry. If you just take your time and really just go over those videos, or I can send you other things to help, but it will be a little bit of part on you just to watch those or watch something similar. I can give you a couple sources. Okay. And I thought we could break into tables. Hey, Trevor. Or you two can go sit with Trevor, or Trevor can come sit over here. And then John and Jess can sit at their own table. And we're going to translate. It's on that paper I gave you earlier. 1 John 1, 1 through 3. This is not the actual thing that you'll find in the Bible, but it is called Level Greek, and it's just basically simplified to the first 8 chapters. I provided some words on the bottom for words that you may not know or have not learned yet, like the pronouns and some prepositions. And so Trevor's table can do verse 1, and y'all can do verse 2. Together, and we could do that. And I will stop recording.